Hi, welcome to another episode of Waypoint Connect. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Johan. And Johan is currently in Pretoria, but I'm not going to tell you about Johan. I think it's better that Johan tell you about Johan. Johan, just in a few seconds, just give us a intro in terms of who you are and where you're currently at.
So firstly, hi to everyone watching and also listening. And it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dirk, that you guys invited me on here. And my name is Johan Jordaan. I am originally from Bloemfontein. Then moved to Cape Town, then lived in Port Elizabeth, and now I'm here in Gauteng. And my life journey has been amazing with Jesus. So first of all, grew up in the church, really love the church. I became a stuntman. I do parkour or free running for the other guys. And I was a Red Bull athlete for many years. And then I came into ministry. And that was so awesome. And I'm here at a church in Pretoria called Waterkloof AGS. And we started an English service called Ep.5. So yeah, that's who I am and that's what I'm doing.
Johan, that's so awesome. And just to let you know, I've got a in-studio audience here with us. So I'd just like you guys to give a shout out to the people out there. Johan, the first thing these guys want to know is tell us a bit more about being a stuntman or a stunt person these days.
Well, it's in the first place, it's amazing. I think the first thing is you have to be crazy. There is a sense of craziness that comes with it. I really give my mom some gray hairs, and she's already praying for my wife one day, when I get one, because I'm gonna drive her mad also. But it's an incredible place to be. You learn so much about yourself, really pushing your body to the limits, if I can say it like that. And I was in an interview one day and people asked me how am I so fearless? And I told them I'm not fearless. I'm expanding my comfort zone. And that's the one thing that I learned with walking with Christ. And my whole sport and stunt career has always been walking with Jesus and how he expand my comfort zone, talking to people, working with people, and just also growing with him through the process. But being a stuntman, you have to be crazy.
And is there like a qualification to be able to become a stuntman to start this journey? How did you specifically get into being a stuntman?
So yes, there is qualifications that you can do. There are a lot of courses and so forth, especially in Cape Town, where the stunt industry in South Africa is the mecca place at the moment. A lot of overseas, like Hollywood and Bollywood as well, come shoot in South Africa because first of all, it's cheaper. And also it's a beautiful place, South Africa, to do all these shoots on. So there is courses that you can do. My story is a bit more different and interesting. I was surfing with guys, and the one surfer knew the guy that is at Red Bull, that was the athlete manager at that back in the day. And they asked me for an interview. He saw some of my video clips on YouTube, and I was still a kid. I think I just turned 17 back then. And they asked me if I can come in for an interview. I did an interview. I did a few tests and so forth with one of the best parkour athletes in the world. And they tested me, and then I became an athlete. And through them, they introduced me for photo shoots and small videos and adverts and so forth. And then it grew. Then you start meeting people that are in the industry. And they're like, hey, we need stunt people. They send you an email because they know my criteria and everything that I've done. Then they will fit you in certain roles. Obviously, you have to do castings so they can see if you can do the certain type of thing that they want you to do.
That's amazing. And I hope that us talking will impact a lot of people and not necessarily move them towards being a stunt man. But if that's what people want to do after this, then that's great.
Yeah.
Please don't write me a personal email about that. But Johan, in terms of looking at this, it's like for a young person, this is like really exciting stuff. You said to me that you worked on sets for movies, for adverts, so you're rubbing shoulders with famous people. With what you're doing currently now, you're well connected with people. So from the outside, it would look as if you're in a space where you're well connected, life is going well. But you said that isn't how life started off for you, and especially when you were younger. So tell us about that.
Life is very interesting for each and every one of us. We all have our different experiences and our different moments that eventually will define who we are. And what I truly believe is your past does make who you are today, but your choices today is going to define who you become.
Yeah.
And how my life started off was, if I can say, it was in a hostile environment, unfortunately. We grew up extremely poor. When I say extremely, it was really bad. But also, God rest my dad's soul. He passed away in COVID time, unfortunately. But he wasn't the best dad out there. He had his moments where he abused us, and it wasn't right. And today, I truly understand why he did it. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't. I'm not saying that. But as I grew older and I'm understanding psychology, I'm understanding people. I have empathy, and I'm walking with Christ. There became a moment in my life which I truly understand this human being and his turmoil that he went through at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up in a hostile environment. I grew up with nothing. We had to work for what you want to achieve. And my sport that I'm doing today, back in the day, we called it wall running, was my getaway, was my place where I went to go away from troubles and just be myself and who I wanted to be. And Christ made me in that sport, in park or in free running. And that's how my journey started. I must say, my mom, she's an incredible person. And what she did is she also put some impactful people in my life, men that were successful, that had good families, a good heart, and also loved Jesus. And so I learned a lot from them, and I could have implemented in my life. But so it didn't start off that well. It took me to realize that when you meet people, and I think for every young person and every person actually needs to understand that you can learn from everyone. And that is how I got most of my opportunities, not because I was fishing for opportunities at all, but I always wanted to learn. I've always wanted to reach out and learn something new and see how I can do that. How does that work? Explain me, how does this work? And I think the people that was influential in my life saw that, and they took me in to give me opportunities at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I like how you started off by saying that your past determines who you are as a person, but it doesn't determine your future. The choices you make today shapes that future. And in your story, that becomes so clear as well, is how it moved you into that space. That's where you started finding yourself and expressing yourself, but that also set you up for moving into the stuntman career. And
that wasn't even a thought. We never thought that's going to work. The people in the church, when I started with my stunt stuff and like parkour or whatever, there was this one guy that came to my mom, an older gentleman, and told her she's a bad mother.
Really?
And at that time I was making really a lot of money doing what I'm doing, and but she was a bad mother for letting me do that.
No, and my next question for you, Johan, is with what you've shared about the challenges you faced growing up, how did that influence your relationship with Jesus?
That is a very interesting question. The thing that I've learned through reading the Bible, I think I'm not a good reader in the first place. I am dyslexic, and it's really hard for me to read. And I had to find ways to overcome that challenge. So YouVersion, the Bible app, really opened up for me to read Bible, because you can listen to it. And so while I'm listening, I can read it and so forth. So when I was younger and the YouVersion Bible app came out, that was a game changer for me to read the Bible. And the one thing that I understood about my circumstances is I can't judge God through my circumstances. I can't judge God through people or what they did to me, because let's face it, there are Christians, or people say that there are Christians, that makes bad choices. I made a lot of bad choices. And if I'm going to take that and I'm going to judge God through the choices people made or through my circumstances, then I wouldn't have become a Christian. And how I realized that was reading about Jesus in the Bible. I started with John, chapter John, and the love of Christ, how he showed people. I realized I can't judge my circumstances or how I grew up or what people did to me, or even the choices I made to become a Christian. I am judging God through his character, through his word, and what he did through my life. And I chose to see all the good things in the bad, because I really saw how he gave us food, how he set people on our paths to care for us and to love us. While at the other hand, most people judge their circumstances through, God through their circumstances. And then you miss the point. You miss it completely. You can't do that. You have to judge God through his word and see what he can do with his power.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of people come to that realization only very late in their life, especially if they've gone through some difficult periods. And my next question would have been, which you kind of answered, was, that's great, but then how did you experience God in this time? And you answered that by saying, if you look back now, you see God providing. You weren't in that space necessarily to experience his closeness and him being there in the moment, but he still provided. He still looked after you and your family, and that's amazing. What I want you to share is what we were talking about in terms of viewing your journey with God and how it shapes you living your life at the moment. And we were talking about that yesterday, and then I had to write a piece for Waypoint about attending our Sunday morning experiences and how that's not church. People kind of infer that is church and relate that to Christianity. So maybe you can share a bit about how you live your life currently, because I think that was just an amazing statement that you made yesterday.
So how I live my life, and that has been portrayed throughout my journey since I was a little kid, actually, is church is not a destination. It's a person at the end of the day. It's how we walk with Christ every day at Checkers, through your friends, and it's what you do. And personally, how I walk with Christ is not with the Bible under my hand. It's a moment on a movie set, or when I parkour with people overseas, or with friends at a different place. When I sat with them, they come to me and they ask, there's something different. That's the thing that I always get. And then I can open up and tell them our story. I can tell them about Jesus and so forth. But the thing is, it's never to compromise. And back in the day, I wasn't at a place that I can be with friends that, let's say, do sinful things, if we want to use church words right here. But as I grew with my relationship with Christ, they became a place where I know I wouldn't compromise if I'm with certain people. And I think the best compliment everyone has ever given me was as an atheist that told his friends that I'm a pastor, and they were like, "Oh, but he's going to ruin the mood." And he was like, "No, just meet him." And that was the best compliment I've ever gotten. As people, I want them to get pulled into my personality as a friend and in a relationship, so that they can see Jesus and then hopefully come to church to see what's happening. Why is this person the way he is? So that I can show them this is who God really is and how amazing he is. And through all that, even in lockdown, I've experienced a deep depression, and how to figure out how to get through that at the end of the day, because everything was shut down. People lost their jobs. Even I lost my job. And you were sitting there and you're like, okay, cool, God, what now? And that's an interesting path.
Yeah, and again, what you're referring to there is that whole concept of, for a lot of people that aren't believers, aren't followers of Jesus, and aren't in that relationship, they judge that relationship with Jesus based on what they experience when they interact with a Christian. So one of the things that came out of our group as we talked about this is you often don't see Christians live Monday to Saturday what they live on a Sunday, and people that don't believe interact with you on Monday to Saturday. And it's difficult then for them to view you with integrity. And that's what you're referring to as that uncompromising, I can connect with them, but I'm not going to be like them.
Yes.
I'm not going to come across as being judgmental.
Yeah, and that's a story that we talked about yesterday. So I love the Bible. The Bible has got the greatest stories, and that story, well, is the story how we can live, let's say, through that
Yeah,
judgmental
yeah.
phase
So
is
share that with us.
John 4.
Mm.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah, so go ahead and tell us about that.
And so, yeah, it's John 4. I think the story that changed my perception about people, about race, about how I view people was the story about John 4. And if you don't know it, it's the story about the Jesus at the well with the woman in Samaria. And what happened at that moment is the Jewish people really don't like the Samaritans at all. And that's a really interesting piece, because they would rather walk 3 days around Samaria than actually just go through it. Imagine you have to walk, you don't have a car or a bicycle or something, you have to walk 3 days around. That's how much they got discussed by these people. But check out Jesus. This dude is so awesome. He went straight up to this well with a woman, and she asked him, but you're a rabbi, why are you sitting with me in the first place? And that moment, I think it broke me as a human, to have so much love for everyone around me, but to compromise. You're still in a state to show people Jesus. You're drinking from the well. Why? So that we don't. Jesus said at that moment, if you drink from me, you'll never be thirsty again. The reason why we must drink from the well is so that other people can then get that same water from us and experience Jesus, and then go and hopefully go and search for him on their own. To also go read Bible, go find a church where they fit in, get friends that actually will build up and help you. There was a time in my life that I knew I am very influential, I think is the right word. So people can influence me very easily. And I knew if I hang out with certain people, I'm going to do some stupid things that I'm going to regret, because that was a habit and I knew what my faults are. And unfortunately, most of us, we don't want to do that introspect. We don't want to sit and realize our faults. So at that time, I went after that story. I was like, oh, cool, what is my fault? And I realized people can influence me very easily. And unfortunately, it's my friends, I must say, they didn't like me for doing that, because they're like, Christians, but I cut them off. It was to get me into a place where I am today now, for no compromise. And I'm sure they will never understand. I haven't talked to them in a while, unfortunately, because again, a Christian hurt them. So there was choices in my life that I had to make back in the day that unfortunately also hurt people. But the choices that I made, I mustn't define what made me now. So I look back and I see there's some things that I can change, and you can change it. And that's why I love people. I want to go out to meet them, and I want them to go and say, whoa, 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 just meet them. And that's how I try to live.
So JJ, as we're wrapping this up, the final point that I want to come to is we're talking about what your life is missing. And if I just draw that line through to where we started, what we're saying is it's not happiness. It's not a great childhood growing up.
No.
And that's part of what we spoke about this past Sunday, is the fact that we often pin happiness to things, and we wake up one day and realize those things can be taken away from us in an instant. And then what you do, and that's what COVID just highlighted for us. So what you're missing isn't things, and it's not happiness. And what you introduce into the conversation is relationship with Jesus, sharing that love with other people. So if we then wrap this up, what would you then share for a young person if they say, I'm unhappy, I just have this feeling there's something missing in my life? And I think if you talk to a lot of young people, what they'll say is, I need future security, and maybe if they are in a relationship with Jesus, from that perspective, they will say, I need to read more Bible, I need to go to church more. But that's not it. What would your advice be?
It's awesome that we're talking about this, because I had a sermon that I did this Sunday night, exactly what we're talking about now. And if you draw a line through my life, The next thing that I'm going to say is not to be cliche. It's not because I'm a pastor. This was everything way before what I'm doing right now. And the thing that changed my life, what I can tell to every person what we need, what we are missing, is the church. And if I'm certain every young person, every person listening to this podcast, if you have to go and think about moments that formed your life in a good way. For instance, if it wasn't for the church where I played drums at, I wouldn't have ever became a great drummer that I am today if it wasn't for the church. I traveled, I played in studios, I did really awesome things with a band, playing drums. But if it wasn't for the church, I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity to expand, for instance, my talent in that area. And if it wasn't for the church, I wouldn't have met my best friends today, where we can build each other up, where we can strengthen each other, where we can actually sit and confess to one another and saying, you know what, I messed up and I need you to pray with me. Yeah. And that silver line, or the lining that we can pull through for every person listening, is the community that we build in a church is much greater than that destination that we're going to. Is that we are the church. It is a person, like I mentioned just before. And if you realize that Jesus gave his life for the church, the only response that we can have to that calling is to give our lives back, is to serve one another, be there for your friends. I think that's the great thing.
Yeah. And I think often when we talk about church, people think we talk about a building, or they think about an hour that we spend on a Sunday. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about,
it's that Monday to Saturday. Yeah.
Monday to Saturday, including Sunday. We're talking about the body of Christ, the capital C church, which is the people. And when you say playing drums, it's not just the act of playing drums, it's the relationships with the people that were there, that spoke into your life. And that's that I'm experiencing in my relationship with Jesus. And I'm just pouring out into somebody else's life, building a relationship with them. And that's what it's all about, is people experiencing God and sharing those experiences with other people.
Yes, and we need to remember there are bad times coming. Like for instance, COVID showed that. If you look at the history of humanity, it is ups and downs as we go. So that's why we can't judge our circumstances. We can't judge other Christians, well, we can't judge God, through those circumstances, or people make mistakes. And we need to make sure we go to that source, which is the Bible. And for instance, I'm sitting here in front of you, I'm 25, and I'm still hopefully classified as young. And I'm telling you, if you read the Bible, and if you actually go to a place where you go to look for God, not through people or through circumstances or a feeling or a moment or through a song, but learn who Jesus is, then when hard times come, it will still be hard. I still cried, I was still angry, but I knew who my resource is. I knew there's still a person in control of this world.
That's awesome. And I like the comment you made yesterday, that if we understand that it's about relationship with God, then reading the Bible doesn't become, I do this so that I can please God. But what is it that you said yesterday?
So yesterday we came to this point. We need to understand that I think sometimes churches and Christians, we think that if you read Bible and if you do this and if you do that, then I'm going to heaven. And if you miss reading the Bible one night, oh, I'm going to hell, and everything falls apart. But why I read Bible is not those ladder climbing thing. I read Bible for the relationship that Jesus speaks into my life. I want to see what this man did, because he was radical. He did some really awesome things. And the only way you can find that out is to go sit and read. And there's so many great resources you can use to make Bible reading easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks a lot for that fresh perspective on something, for instance, like reading the Bible, because it's about experiencing more of Jesus so that you're able to pour more of him out into other people's lives.
Exactly, yeah.
Thanks a lot for that. And Johan, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for pouring that out into us and sharing your life experiences with us. It's been great having you here. And I know we'll hear from you again shortly. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And hopefully I can make a plan that I can sit there next to you.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that. Johan, thank you very much. Have a great week.
Thank you much. God bless everyone. And yeah, have a great week, Sam. Cheers.